Our next guest is the CEO and Managing Director of WA Financial. He founded the hedge fund while studying economics at UC Davis before working with Morgan Stanley and then Bank of America Merrill Lynch in San Francisco. He also previously served as youth director with Masjid an-Noor and volunteers for local community events. What drives him is his passion to be a force for good and to build a positive legacy. Please welcome Rahmatullah Wahdy.
I don't have a presentation. I'm just going to be telling you guys a little bit about my experiences. But I think you guys will all notice a trend tonight amongst the speakers here. And that is that they're all trying to do something above themselves, something greater than just their own personal ambitions. They're trying to do something that really gives back, that's impactful to their communities. And I think that's an important thing to keep in mind. My key takeaway for tonight is this. If there's one thing that you remember from my 5 minutes up here, it's that the key to success is to align your vision with a greater good, something greater than just yourself, something bigger than yourself. It's something that's going to help you drive and motivate you in the future as you embark upon the challenges and opportunities that you take. To me, this idea of aligning the vision with this greater good is exemplified in the story of one of the companions of the Prophet, Mus'ab ibn Umair. And I wanted to briefly touch upon him because I know that we all know about his story, but something that really hit me, at least when I was younger and I read about him, was how he grew up in a wealthy family, which he left when he converted to Islam. He was kicked out of his house. And instead of him feeling depressed and sad about his situation, he took it as an opportunity. He was the first ambassador of Islam. He went to Medina before Hijrah and actually converted much of Medina's population before the Prophet even arrived. Another thing about him was that, during his death, or during the Battle of Uhud when he fought, people were telling the soldiers that the Prophet had died. And what Mus'ab said was that, the message of Allah is a man, my Lord is Allah. And that kind of connected him and inspired him to still be brave and courageous in that really challenging time. Something that touched me about this was, when he died and the Prophet and the companions were burying him, he didn't have enough possessions to really cover his body. And, we all know the story of, they had a sheet that could barely, if they put on his head, it couldn't cover his feet. And they had to, use grass or something to cover him. But what the Prophet said about him, I think is important. The Prophet said that among the believers are men and women who fulfill their covenant to their God. And I think that ties into this whole concept of having a vision that's bigger than ourselves, right? And sometimes it's hard for us to do, to figure out what exactly we're going to tie in this larger picture with. But I think his story is a great example for us to, something that we all know kind of in our, when we grew up, or for those of us in Muslim households. So that leads me to the next segment, which is, what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Right? Many of us are young. I'm in my 20s still. But think about it. What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? I started volunteering with Masjid an-Noor at a young age, eventually became a youth director, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot about myself. I learned about who I was and why I do what I do. And something hit me. If what we do defines us, we should think more about why we do what we do. Before I worked in investment banking, I started my first company in 2010. I was 22 years old. I was studying economics. I loved stocks and investments since I was a teenager. It was something that I just always followed. But I wanted to do something more. I wanted to challenge myself. I wanted to really act upon what I learned, right? I want to kind of, test my mettle. And so I formed the hedge fund. Hedge funds are special kinds of investment partnerships that are laser focused on trying to make money for their clients. And, I was able to trade almost every asset class across the globe. It was a really unique experience. It was my first major experience with money. And it also taught me about my motivations, right? Sometimes, or it may seem that what drove me was my desire to make more money. But what I realized was that I was good at something. And what I ended up realizing towards the end of that, startup was that I wanted to use my skill set to do something good. And that kind of leads me to where I am today. I've worked for a few companies, but in March of this year, I founded another company, WA Financial. It's one of the first Islamic financial advisory firms and wealth management firms in the United States. It's a daunting, challenge, and it's something that's it's difficult. It's not something easy to do. But some key things that I've used to help me is, when I'm worried or whenever I need to borrow courage, I think of two key things. The first thing is Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel, and for the Muslims in here, that's it's a deep meaning, right? Hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. Allah is our greatest protector, and He is our greatest guardian. He is sufficient for us, right? So don't be afraid. Don't be worried about taking on a big challenge. And the next one is, align your vision for what you want to do with something great. So my advice to you, especially for the young people amongst here, is exactly that. If you have a dream, if you have a goal, align it with something greater than yourself. Don't make it about your personal accomplishment, your personal ego. Tie it in with some big picture idea. Whether it's your religion, your family, your community, do something big. Like the people who will be coming up here, all that they've done, it's all about their community, being impactful. Think about that. Be a force for good. Don't be afraid of the challenges. And I think with that, we'll all persevere. So it was funny, before I came here tonight, I spoke with some of my partners, before I even put together what I was going to talk about. And we were thinking about the challenges that young Muslims in particular are facing. I don't think we're want for young, ambitious Muslims. But I think that it's hard for young Muslims to know what to do, especially if they have business ideas or if they have venture ideas that they want to accomplish. And that's something that we as a community have to give back to you and help in those ways. So there are things that people are working on. We put together a young Muslim entrepreneurship program just for that. But there are many other avenues for you guys to take. Don't be afraid to ask for help. Don't be afraid of the challenges ahead of yourselves, and align your vision with something greater. Jazakallah khair, and have a great rest of the evening.